Hey everybody, what's up and welcome to the first installment in an epic double-part celebration of the best metal that 2020 has had to offer us. And if you've been following the podcast for the last couple of episodes, you will know that I promised some pretty epic guests, and I have delivered. Today's guest is going to be Kelly T of Kelly T Reviews, counting down her favorite 10 records of the year with me. I am going to be counting down numbers 20 to 11 in my top 20 of 2020. And if you don't know Kelly T, if you don't follow her channel, then make sure that you do so. She posts a couple of times a week on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and does reviews of some really, really cool underground stuff, interviews some really interesting figures in the underground scene as well. So yeah, show her some love and support. Another band that you need to show some love and support is Unblessed Divine, featuring friend of the show, Lee Vollenschlager, formerly of Malevolent Creation. They have just brought out a new EP. The EP is available on Bandcamp for free. Here is a taste of said EP for you right now.
Beat the sky with the titan turn from fast. Fingers bleed
That was Reborn Enlightened by Unblessed Divine off of an EP that is available right now for free on Bandcamp. It's called The Coming Darkness. Unblessed Divine, of course, like I said, featuring Lee Wallenschlager, formerly of Malevolent Creation, also members of Bile of Man and Sinister. And yeah, very, very cool stuff. And really cool to see how it's sort of all come through to fruition. I remember a preview track by this band a couple of months ago. And obviously Lee and I spoke shortly after he exited Malevolent Creation. So very cool to see that he's landed on his feet. And I dare say landed on his feet in a far better band than Malevolent Creation. And that's not to be salty. That's just personal taste. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. And in the meantime, go check them out on Bandcamp. I don't think they've got merchandise up yet, but when they do, show them some love and support. And when they ask where you came from, let them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere that sent you. Right, so this week there's going to be no reviews, no news, because Kelly and I went plenty long as it is, and there's going to be lots of new music for you to hear on this conversation. But a reminder that if you are tied for things to buy over Christmas, then your grandmother is going to love nothing more than an Into the Necrosphere hoodie, which you can get now on the Teespring store for Into the Necrosphere. I think the URL is www.teespring.com/into-the-necrosphere. So go check that out. There's hoodies, face masks, t-shirts, leggings, and all sorts of other malarkey on there that you can get for yourself. And next week, as I promised and have been promising for the last couple of weeks, I'm going to have Tentacle and Zen from Omega Infinity, and we're going to be having us a top 10 triple threat throwdown. So counting down our top 10s or our respective top 10s of 2020. So yeah, really looking forward to that. Always great having those guys around. I had them on the show probably about 20 or so episodes ago, and actually that still remains one of my highest rated shows. So you guys seem to really enjoy that, and I can't wait to be talking to those guys again. Also remember, if this is your first visit to Into the Necrosphere, you can get the show on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, just about every podcast service under the sun. And also remember to follow the show on social media. The show is on Instagram at Into the Necrosphere, on Facebook at Into the Necrosphere, and on Twitter at iNecrosphere. So if you want to catch any live updates that I might give about new episodes, new guests, or just come and shoot the breeze, then feel free to do so. And if you're a band, you've recorded a demo, and you want to join the ever-growing pantheon of illustrious acts to join the Into the Necrosphere Demo of the Week segment, then drop me a line at intothenecrosphere@gmail.com. And if I like what I hear, I will feature it on the show, and I might even invite you to come on as a guest. On that note, let us pause all the shit talking and welcome to the show for the first time ever to count down her top 10 of 2020, Kelly T of Kelly T Reviews. So you've caught me with bad hair this morning, and there's a very good chance that my hellhound is going to show up in the background at some point. Right. Whenever I'm on work calls, she's on that sofa behind me, and she kind of peers out every now and then and just disappears again. But great to have you on here. I've been following your channel for a while now, and I've been blown away to see how much the channel has grown with literally no compromise. I mean, like I one of the best compliments people can give me is that I introduce them to new music. But I mean, I think the extent to which you delve into the underground puts me way to shame. So,
oh, not at all.
What gave you the idea originally to get the channel started? How did all of this come about?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. So I think I started doing this back not too long ago. It was probably the sort of midway through 2018. I started doing it for just a metal group, and I was actually doing the reviews live, and that was horrific. That was just so nerve-wracking. And then at the start of 2019, I decided to start my own page basically on Facebook. That grew pretty quickly, and then a little bit later I started Instagram and then YouTube. But it all began, I mean, I've loved metal ever since I was younger, and my personal Facebook page at the time, which I hardly even touch anymore, I was just constantly sharing metal, and I just discovered this band, and look at this band, and this blah, blah, blah. And my family and friends were like,
I was just about to see, so you see that normal friend count just drop every single time that you share something.
And you talk about normal things, but I kind of felt a little bit more at home finding a community that appreciated this type of music and particularly the underground as much as I do. So yeah, it's been really good so far.
Well, grown, I think. So when I discovered your page and I liked you, I think you were on about 3,900 followers on Facebook, and I think you've just tipped over like 9.5, which is just, I mean, fucking ridiculous. Because I think I only discovered you about 6 months ago.
Yeah. I think likes, it's just over 9,000, and then there's a bit over 10,000 following. So I don't really understand what the difference of liking and following is as far as Facebook terms. But my Instagram's growing nicely as well. So it's a really cool community over there.
And how do you find things have changed for you as your channel has grown? I mean, firstly, obviously, I would imagine there would be some freaks that have come out of the woodwork. I know you. I remember you posted something about the elitists on Instagram a little while ago. But yeah, how has the response changed, or I guess how's the mechanism by which the channel run adapted over time?
Yeah, I mean, I do like to take the piss out of people that take the piss out of me. So I kind of do little parodies here and there when the elitists do attack. But I think from the start, there was a few people that had an issue with me talking about black metal. I often don't look the part. I'm not a downer. I'm actually quite happy when I talk about metal because it makes me happy. So I
was just about to say that was the thing that I always found the most, like when I initially saw the channel, it's like, she seems so sweet. Like why is she talking about this grim shit when she seems like a truly well-adjusted human being?
I'm a smiling assassin,
okay.
I mean, look, I am who I am when I'm talking about the music, and I'm just being myself, and I do get pretty passionate and excited about it. But I think those comments, and like I used to get comments like, oh, you should be selling handbags and vacuum cleaners, not talking about black metal and all that sort of stuff at the start. And that I think the more people got used to seeing me around social media, because people and still do share my reviews, which is really, really cool of people to do that. So I think people have just finally, after 2 years, just gotten used to me. I mean, it still happens, but yeah. And to think back at the start, you know, I was reviewing 4 or 5 albums a week, which was just not really sustainable. So I've had various people come in and help me throughout the time. Most recently with Vinny and Mikey, who are 2 of my great friends, and they still do reviews here and there, but it's when it suits them. You know, there's never been any obligation or pressure by me to say you've got to do it here and then and every week. So, but their help's been amazing as well, and I think people have gotten quite used to them.
Yeah. Do the people at work know about your black metal inclinations?
They do. It's pretty funny. Yeah. I mean, not everyone, but yeah, most people do. It's funny because I work at a power station. It's a very big, huge industry, and it's amazing how quickly the word got around. But yeah, some people were shocked because I had the comment that, oh, I thought you would have been into Katy Perry, and they're like, we were horrified when we heard the music you play. Yeah, so some people are a little bit shocked.
That's the thing. Like I always try and imagine hearing out the music we listen to through the ears of somebody who doesn't know it, and who doesn't understand the aesthetic behind it, and the fact that quite a lot of the stuff that the guys are singing about, I mean, a lot of it is if you know, they can deny it perhaps in public, but you and I both know, because we've met a lot of these folks, a lot of it is tongue in cheek, or a lot of it has a lot of it serves as an outlet for a certain part of your personality, you know. So like the satanic thing, in most cases, it's about rebellion more than anything else, and actually it compartmentalizes the rebellion so that you're not out burning shit and acting like a lunatic in the street. But I think anybody who doesn't know that and then looks at it from the outside in, I often think to myself, they must think I'm insane to listen to this stuff. And God knows what they would think of somebody like Attila or Mortis or somebody like that, because, you know, when they're on stage, it's just a totally different human. I mean, I would dread to show my mom a video of Marduk live. I mean, even though I've met Morgan many times and he's one of the nicest guys, and I bet if she met him, she'd think he's a nice guy too. But if she saw him on stage, or if she saw, if she saw a Marduk music video or something like that, I honestly think she'd have a fucking heart attack.
Yeah, I think most people would. And like you said, you hit the nail on the head. People just don't understand it. And I guess it can be an acquired taste. It's not for everyone. A lot of people hear metal in general and just hear noise, or it makes them feel angry. And then you add like death metal and black metal, which is just like completely on the other end
Gear
of the spectrum.
7 and Gear 8. So,
yeah, it's hard for people, I suppose.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a couple of those folks in a little bit as well, because, you know, I can think of great examples, again, of the most mild-mannered human beings that then come out with music which is just the most hateful, violent shit on the face of the earth. But, you know, Matt Wilcock from Werewolves, Bremelin, Antichrist Imperium, you speak to him, he's really softly spoken. He comes across as a genuinely sweet man. And then you listen to the stuff, you listen to the new Werewolves record, and it's like, fucking hell, dude.
Huge. I mean, and that's exactly right. And most of the artists that I've spoken to or interviewed or just become friends with, it's chalk and cheese with what they put out and how they are as a person. So, you know, it's that art person separation that has to be in place.
Yeah. No, and I 100% agree with you on that. All right. So we're here to talk about best records of 2020. So I think the way we'll do this is I'll give you priority. So let's do your top 10 first. And then I'm going to do my 20 to 11 countdown. And then I'll edit in some music when I do the post edit for it. Last year, I made the mistake of putting a song in after every single band I spoke about in my top 20, and the fucking episode was nearly 4 hours long. So I'm not only was it nearly 4 hours long, it took me about 8 hours to edit. So I'm not making that mistake again this year. For people listening, if you are desperate to hear most of the bands that we're talking about, you can get yourself a fucking Spotify account and look them up yourself. But I will edit in a few clips here and there. So I'm gonna start with you, and I think if you want to give me kind of your 10, and then I'll interject with commentary. I have listened to a fair few of the things that you sent to me beforehand. And again, this is the great thing about black metal to me, and about especially black metal at the moment, is like I look at people's top 20s or top 10s of the year, and there's so much stuff that I haven't even heard of yet. But I mean, I spend an extraordinary amount of my time listening to music. So it's not like I'm one of those people that goes, "Oh, well, nothing good was made after 1992." So I listen to as much new music as as being gainfully employed allows you to listen to, and I still feel like I'm only scratching the surface. I keep on discovering new stuff.
Yeah, me too. And like I worked it out, we've probably reviewed close to 156 albums this year, which is pretty huge. And so my list will probably be very different to a lot of the lists that are floating around, because I am so focused on the underground. But hopefully, and there's still some big black metal albums that I've really dived into this year just in my own time. But like you, when you've got a job, family, you just can't cover everything, because it's been a massive year, particularly with COVID. There's been so many solo artists breaking out and just creating such devastating black metal. And so this was hard for me.
So my list, I did share with you, like I had to change the scoring mechanism to where it was eventually like 3 decimals, and my 1 and 2 are separated by 0.002 points.
Yeah.
And it's literally like I'll listen to something. I mean, even going through, while I was laying in bed this morning, I listened through the like numbers 11 through 20 that I'm going to talk about to you later. I listened through one song each, and there were some of those bands that I was listening to, and I was thinking to myself, in any other year, this could have been either in the top 5 or number 1 pick, and then somehow in 2020, as fucking messed up as this year has been with the coronavirus, as far as black metal is concerned, I cannot think of a better year by no small stretch of the imagination. 2017 is probably the closest, but even then, it's not anywhere like what we've seen this year. And as you say, I think it's kind of all these solo projects, or at least bands that are, where the music is written by one person. A lot of folks had a lot of time on their hands, and they decided, I'm gonna feed off of all the shit around me, and I'm gonna put out just extraordinarily good music.
Yeah, it's been a massive year. So hence why this was so hard. And like I said to you, I did find it a little bit stressful, because when it comes to music, I'm very indecisive about choosing favorites, because it's just so subjective. But I've done it. And I'm proud of myself. But the list is, even though I've got 10 to 1, it's very close, I've got to say, just like yours, that's for sure. So should I start?
You can start with number 10.
So number 10, I have Fabri Manet. This is a USBM solo artist. So USBM, US black metal, for me is just off its face at the moment. It's an absolute movement, a new wave of black metal, in my opinion. The album came out in June 2020. It's Enhanced Audio Terrorism. How much detail do you want me to go into with each one?
As much as you want.
Oh, okay.
I always say to everybody, as far as the show is concerned, I hit record, and whatever comes out. That's how you get the best conversation. So yeah, I will just comment there. I totally agree with you about US black metal right now. Obviously I'm pretty sure we're going to be talking about Ecclesia in a little bit, but I think that's a great example of the step up that US black metal has taken recently. And there seems to be these explosions of just extraordinary talent everywhere. Poland, Iceland, France. I think in the UK, I think the scene is really exciting. I think the Australian scene is really hotting up. But the US is it's always kind of been bubbling under, but I feel like in the last 2-3 years, it has really, really come into its own.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So this album for me, it's pure terror metal. There's terrifying components within this album. So it's really quite an ambient and extreme journey throughout. So I had to put that one in there because it's just intense and it's really disturbing. And to me, that's how, good black metal should be. So it will roll you up, definitely.
Morgan from Marduk once said to me, we were talking about, I think it was around the time that Plague Angel came out, and we were talking about how the record sounded, and he's like, well, for me, black metal shouldn't be about sitting by the side of the river looking depressed. It needs to be a fist in the face of God. Because I think around that time there was all those black metal albums where it's this. I like what I would call fucking LARP black metal. These morons running around in the forest with fucking pretend swords, and sitting by the side of the river with some Shakespearean writing as the title for the record. And I am very, very pleased that the scene has moved away dramatically from that. I mean, there's like a real ugliness that's come into black metal in the last couple of years, which I fucking love.
Yeah, me too. And I think this year it's definitely come back strong, which is great.
Yeah.
At number nine, I have Beria with Wielding Malignity. Now, this came out in October 2020. Beria is a solo project hailing from Australia. The growth that I've heard in this album compared to his last album is just exceptional, and really highlighted what a creative and great artist this man is. Such darkness, sorrow, angst amongst this album. It's just hard not to listen to this and, sort of feel, I don't even know the word, because when I say feel, people go, it's all about feelings. But when you hear music, you do feel. If you don't, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
But it's just so lo-fi and it's nasty. And again, it's just pure hatred and filth. So I'm not sure if you got to listen to that one or anything.
No, I did not. And just as soon as you've been describing it, I definitely want to hear it. But I wanted to ask you, broadly speaking, how big is the Australian black metal scene? Because obviously, I hear stuff like Gravier and bands like that, which I've been very impressed with, and I'm know very, very well I guess that what I could probably call the Dave Haley scene, because he's in so many great bands. But how, just when it comes to, I guess, the more underground black metal stuff, what's the size of the scene? How embraced is it in Australia?
I think it is definitely a scene that's growing. I mean, it's always been around. I mean, you look at cities like Adelaide in South Australia, it's like the mecca of black metal. There's so much, there's so much good metal coming out of that state. But I mean, black metal in particular is very, very strong over there. I think as far as the real underground bands, they're really starting to emerge more so as solo projects, with Abysmal, Beria, Komodos, Snorlax. There's just so many, and there's so many that I keep hearing about that I haven't even been able to listen to yet. So I definitely think it's something that's growing very, very fast.
So in spite of the fact that you guys have great weather, people can still make the black metal.
That is interesting that you say that, because I was having this conversation with Chris Gaboa from Dead Space, or formerly of Dead Space, and that was one of my things I used to say to him, that it's people just don't expect us to have such, aggressive and disdaining black metal because we live in a sunny country and whatnot. But I guess it's just what the artists, they take from their surroundings, whether they live up in the hills or it's the oppressive sun, because our summers are just so harsh. And they actually, well, for me personally, summer has become a depressing, bloody season because it's just so too hot to do anything, and you just, so it's interesting. But I guess they just draw on their own experience, and a lot of it's very cathartic, and it's good stuff.
Well, again, I think so it was an Australian band that got me into metal, AC/DC, when I was 9 years old. But there's been so many great Australian bands over the years, and so many bands I think that were criminally overlooked. I've spoken about them many, many times before. But for me, a band like Alchemist, as an example, should have been like Metallica levels of massive. I remember seeing them live once, and my immediate thought when they started playing the first song was, this band is they sound way too big to be in a club this small. They sound like they should be at a stadium level. And I always felt like Particularly in maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, part of the reason why some of those bands were overlooked is because they weren't hitting the touring circuit in the States and Europe as much because they lived too far away. But I definitely feel like there's a lot of bands over the years that should have been a lot bigger were it not for the geographical separation. And maybe the fact that people don't automatically default to Australia as like, okay, well, that's where great metal comes from, which again is actually not true. And even going back historically, I mean, AC/DC isn't metal, but there are very, very few folks that have gotten into this music or play this music that I don't think that I could honestly say that AC/DC hasn't touched them in some way musically and influenced them at least along the path to get into heavier stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're the band that got me into metal or heavier music at that time. I think I was about 7, but exactly. I mean, you go back to the 90s and even before that, the 80s, for Australian bands to make it outside of Australia was just so hard because we're so far away from everything. It costs a lot of money to obviously tour overseas. I think now with the digital age and people being able to get their music out there a lot easier is putting us on the map a lot more with the metal scene. So a lot more people are talking about Australian extreme metal, which it's great to hear.
Out of interest, which AC/DC song was it that turned your head?
I think it was Highway to Hell. Pretty sure it was Highway to Hell. It's a funny story because this is embarrassing. But I was listening to Wham at the time, and I still love Wham and George Michael. But I was listening to Wham, and my dad was always into, really good music, Led Zeppelin, the Stones, AC/DC, and he was playing AC/DC, and I walked out and was like, "What's this, Dad?" And next minute, we're sitting down listening to it together, and he bought me a shirt a couple of weeks later, and I just still remember the stench of the paint from the artwork on this shirt. I think it was a Hell's Bells shirt or something, but yeah, it was back when they were proper, like almost hand painted on. They were pretty toxic.
Yeah. They had like this rubbery feel to them.
Yeah, it was awful.
Mine was Thunderstruck, and the irony of it was, so in our house, both my parents listened to relatively good music. My mom's a music teacher, so she was, I grew up with classical music around me, which is, I think, what potentially partly informed where my music taste headed towards. And then my dad was into he was into a lot of crap, but he was also into, some decent, 60s and 70s, rock and stuff like that. But metal was very much frowned upon because both my parents are quite devout Christians. Whilst on our way to church one day, so everyone's busy getting ready. I'd had my clothes on already, so I went into the living room, switched on the television, and there was a rerun of a TV show called Hot Hits. And I remember the VJ saying, like, "This next song your grandmother won't like, but you will," and it played Thunderstruck by AC/DC. And I was 9 years old, but I'd always kind of stuff like Twisted Sister I was already liking, but when I heard that song, I was so blown away. I remember like singing it to myself for about 2-3 weeks, and I wouldn't forget it. And then finally, I came across somebody that had a cassette of it that was he was willing to record it for me. And I think for about a year, I listened to The Razor's Edge every single day, all day, to a point where I remember my mom once coming into the room. It's like, "When is this going to end?"
I love it.
But I mean, yeah, I think I would have gotten into this music anyway, but there are a few memories in my life that remain as vivid as the first moment that I heard Thunderstruck. It's an incredible tune, and like I said, I think AC/DC. Nowadays, my preference is for Bon Scott era stuff, but
Me too. I love him. Yeah,
I think that the great thing about them is at their best, there was always like there was sort of a happiness to the music, but there was also like an undercurrent of darkness. Like you listen to a song like "If You Want Blood." It sounds, on the surface, it sounds pretty happy, but there's a real like meanness to it,
Yes. Yeah, definitely. They had such simplistic riffs, but they were riffs that stuck, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right, so it's not the AC/DC appreciation hour.
I haven't spoken about AC/DC for ages.
I could do an entire fucking podcast just on AC/DC. We'll have to earmark that for 2021.
Yeah.
But, okay, so your number 8.
So my number 8 is by another USBM solo artist, and it is Vredensdal, and the album is The Tyrant Shade. So this came out in May 2020. Sickest riffs, like I don't even know how else to describe it. They're just pulverizing. It's pure hell. And this album is one that all of these albums this is one of the big reasons how I created my list. Which are the albums that I just can't turn off, that I need to say, I need to put on The Tyrant Shade. I need an injection of, this, that, and the other. So that one's definitely up there. And he is a very interesting artist. He's got like this old school vibe and real rock and roll vibe about his black metal, but it's not black and roll, but it's just like old school heavy metal throughout his black metal. So there's some really crushing like moments. And his voice is just incredible. He's got a very cult, scathing, gravelly voice. And I think there's a fair few people who have been talking about this album.
I definitely agree with your criteria around like that. I think was the decider for me on many occasions. I'd look at like, 2-3 records and I'd go, okay, if people put those 3 CDs in front of me right now and said pick one to listen to, what would I automatically gravitate towards? And that's what kind of separated some of these things. Is what do I think I'd come back to most frequently? But again, even then it was nigh on impossible to decide exactly, because that also depends on your mood at the time. So
exactly, it's so subjective. So my number 7 is another USBM artist, and look, I know who cares where they're from, it's about the music, but as I said, USBM it's just been off its face this year, so I have covered a lot of it. Curse, and the album is Cursed. He's from Ohio. Is that how you say it? That's terrible. I'm so tired today. September 2020. This was just there's so many triumphant moments throughout this one. This one took me by surprise. When I first listened to it, I liked it and I was like, yes, we can definitely fuck with this. We've got to review it. But on the second listen, I was just like, this is huge. You know how sometimes it just opens up and evolves the more you listen? And I still listen to this today, and just the melodies, they're just so moving, they're so dark. There's some really cool prog metal going on throughout it as well, and that post-black sound. But for the most part, like the lyrics are very old. Sorry, the lyrics and the vocal style is very old school and second wave, kind of that real throaty, moody sound. And like the song, what's my favorite song, Wanderer's Descent, it's just an absolute experience. It's a stunning album. And what I love about this album so much is every track is just so different. So he has like a little bit of like really heavy doom ambience in one song, and then he'll go into that real progressive black metal sound. And so it's truly an excellent album. More people need to be talking about that one. So
that I did check that out, by the way. So that was on the original draft that you sent me. I gave that a listen, and I totally agree with you. Love it. And you can tell straight away it's going to be one of those records. It's like Ruins of Everest's Exuvia was like that for me. I remember hearing My Era, which I believe was the first kind of preview single that they released with the album, and you listen to it and you're like, Jesus, this is fucking amazing. And then it's like, the more times you listen to the record, the more you kind of discover. And even now, 3 years or 4 years after that album came out, every time I hear it, I hear new stuff that I didn't notice before.
Yes.
So no, I totally agree with you. And that Cursed record sounds like it has that potential too. I was going to ask you, you would get a deluge of stuff sent to you, I'm sure. How are you about picking what you review and what you don't? I mean, like, I'm very open about this. I don't really, unless it's a really big name band that I've said I really like in the past. So like I didn't give the Inquisition or the new Inquisition record a particularly good review. But I'm a big fan of Inquisition's music. So unless it's like a big name thing, I tend to avoid it. Like I don't want to be one of those critics that just, run bands down for the sake of doing so. Do you tend to avoid stuff that when you hear it, you go, this is a load of fucking bullshit?
Yeah, I mean, because I don't see myself as a critic so much. And the reason why I don't see myself as a critic is for that very reason, because I don't choose to review albums that I don't resonate with. Yeah. So I'll have a listen to 1 or 2 songs, and if it gets me and I'm like, yes, I can definitely listen to more of this, then I will review it. And there's many albums that come through that I think they're just not going to fit in with the audience that is following me. Obviously, there's no point me doing a pub rock album when there's a heavily extreme crowd following my reviews, or if it's black metal and it's just like anything else that we all listen to, things like that. So I'd rather just say to them that I can't do this right now, or I direct them to someone that might have a radio show, and just so it gives them another avenue. But I'm really only focusing on the albums that I listen to that I enjoy. So and likewise with what I send to Mikey and Vinny. Mikey has very similar tastes to me. He loves all the filthy, raw, dirty black metal, whereas Vinny's very much into the ambient prog post black metal sound. So I'll kind of screen those for them as well, and that's pretty much the process. But the thing is, this year, just like it feels like everything I've been sent is just so good, and it's really hard because there's so many albums I haven't even got to, and there's bands still waiting, and I'm like, send help, I'm drowning. I'm never going to cover this all.
Yeah.
So.
No, I like, again, for me, I think there's, my reasoning behind it is, I think having written a lot of reviews over the years, personally, I find it a lot easier to write. I don't know if it's a commentary on my personality, but I find it easier to write a scathing review than I do to say, to always find different ways to say something positive. And almost in that, because of that was like a check for me when I started the podcast to go, okay, I have also been in studios with bands before, and I've seen how much work goes into a record, whether I like the record or not. So I don't have the talent to do that. So one, I don't want to be exactly what you just said. I don't want to cast myself in the position of journalist or music critic. I'm a music enthusiast, and I would prefer to talk about stuff that I genuinely enjoy. The only times that I make an exception is like if there's a big record coming out that I was looking forward to, then I feel like I do need to give an opinion on it, even if I don't like it. Like the new Anel Nathrak, I thought was terrible. The new Inquisition, when I saw it was going to come out, I was like, the best news ever. My whole top 20 is upended because this may end up at number 1. And I got to like track 3, and it's like, I'm not so sure about this anymore. So then I feel like I need to say something, but I wouldn't go out and, some random person sends me their music, I think it's terrible, and I go, right, no, I'm really going to lay into these people.
Yeah, what's the point?
It's fucking stupid. It's like a little while ago, and I mean, totally irrelevant to black metal, but Michael Striper took really, it's Michael Sweet from Striper. Wait, no, the guy from Striper took massive umbrage with the fact that Darren Toms reviewed their record and gave it a very bad review. But then I also thought to myself, I kind of see what he's saying. Like, I know the kind of music that Darren Toms reviews and likes. Why the fuck would he put his name forward to review a Striper album? If not, to give himself an outlet to just bash a band that, maybe philosophically he didn't agree with, whatever the case may be. But to me, there's zero point in doing that.
Yeah.
I don't like Striper's music either. You're never going to ever see me talk about them on the show in any other context than what we're discussing right now. So anyway, sorry, that was a side rant, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I know what you mean. And that's exactly how I am. But obviously with a lot, not big bands, just smaller, lesser known underground bands, which was my whole entire point of starting this, was just to try and help put their work out there a little bit extra. So.
Yeah. All right. I think we are down now to number 6.
Number 6, we have Puncture Wound, and I always fuck the title up to this, so bear with me. These guys always have such convoluted titles.
Yeah.
I always give Trav heaps over that, but it is Complete Carnage of Coagulating Cacophonous Corpses.
Say that really quickly.
Do you want to have a go? It came out in April 2020. And these guys they're about to release this on vinyl, which is really, really cool, through Corrupted Flesh Division. So that's good for them. They deserve that. But Puncture Wound, they're from Australia. They're old school death metal. They are everything that old school death metal should be, violent lyrics, vile content, really, no frills sounds. It's like, to me, this album is like something that you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley, or it'll just kick the shit out of you. Excellent album. And it was hard to put them at 6 because it's such a good album for me, and I'm comparing death metal to black metal, and that's always hard. But
yeah. It's a great record, and I think the thing that stood out for me on the album is, like, a lot of death metal nowadays to me sounds too formulaic to be interesting. There's too much great black metal that colors outside the lines that I enjoy, whereas I feel like death metal tends to stick to a more rigid formula, and I find that boring. What I liked about this record is there's a real emphasis on songwriting and a real emphasis on hooks. And that means that every single track on the record is elevated because of that. So they follow, again, typical death metal tropes. The aggression's there, the deep guttural vocals are there, the imagery is there. But every single song, you can kind of exit and remember afterwards. When you re-listen to the album, it's the same thing. So, I agree with you. Top-notch record. I think I think if you're into death metal, this absolutely needed to be on your radar in 2020.
Yeah, and Aussie death metal, as a whole is fairly unhinged. You know, there's just something so unhinged about it, and these guys just do it really, really well. So they definitely had to be on the list. At number 5, it is Abstract the Light. These guys are an avant-garde black metal band hailing from Adelaide, and this is their latest. It's actually their debut full-length release, Magna Sapientia Correre, To the Depths of Thy Soul. I've been waiting for this album since their EP release in 2016 from Out the Void. I became very big fans of their work because even though that was only a 4-track EP with tracks that go for 11 minutes and so forth, it's a big experience. And I know that these guys have put so much effort into this album, and for me it just was 100% evident when you listened through. And because it's so massive, I'm still listening to it now and discovering components that I didn't hear the time before, and it truly is an experience. You know, they've really honed in on the darkness, the catharsis of the man's psyche. They've really taken it to another level with those really haunting folk moments throughout it, and it's just truly a magnificent, masterful album. So that one's sitting at number 5.
And isn't it just great when you see a band like that who, you know, put out an incredible EP, and they, you know, because there have been bands in the past that put out a great EP or a great demo and then everything else is crap. They just can't ever, because so much work went into putting that together, they just can't replicate it when it comes to an album. And when they then step up and do a full-length record and they come up with something this great, you know, I find that as a music enthusiast, I find that extremely satisfying. Utkana is a great example of that to me as well. Utkana's demo for me was fucking incredible, and I said at the time, if you know, I were including demos in you know, best releases of 2019, they would almost definitely have been on there. And then they brought out their you know, debut, and it makes the demo sound pedestrian. And actually, I would say Abstract the Light, if I compare the two releases, it's kind of the same. You know, the EP was fantastic, but I feel like this record is such a massive step up in maturity. Albeit, I will say that they're on my honorary mentions list, but as you kind of described it, I'm second guessing myself. Did I give these guys a raw deal?
Well, you know, this only came out sort of end of August too, so people might not have had enough time to really fully digest it. I've been lucky enough to be able to have little listens beforehand and whatnot, but yeah, it's brilliant. And the actual album itself, the physical album, which I have, is just perfectly presented too. So it's a good one to have in the collection.
Are you a vinyl collector? Or are you an audiophile at all?
I've just started my vinyl again probably about 18 months ago. So, God damn, that's expensive. And I just, so I have, but I've got a ton of CDs, and I've actually gotten into collecting tapes again too, because that's obviously a very...
that's the most cult thing you can do.
It's very cult. And a lot of the solo artists and underground bands are putting out tapes. So, and you know, look, they're cheap to buy and they're pretty cool to have. So
yeah. No, the whole audio game is the biggest fucking money drain on the face of the earth, but I am completely addicted to it. I did a hi-fi special a couple of months ago as well, where I kind of ran down my whole rig, and it's already changed and already cost me a lot more money. But whenever I see somebody who's collecting vinyl, I always have to ask, like, are you into it as well? Are you one of us also? So
yeah,
like, I think it's an even more niche group than people that are into black metal, honestly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I wished I'd kept so many of the vinyls that I used to have, and I gave so many away when I was moving out of home, and which was a long time ago, and that was at the time when digital streaming was coming in, and that was like the next best, you know, the greatest thing that ever happened. And you live and learn.
Yeah,
you live and learn.
Okay, number 4.
Number 4 is Messiah in the Abyss. Now, this is the album is Genocidal Journey. This is another solo project hailing from Venezuela this time. And wow, this album is just incredible. I was only having a listen to this again this morning. The amount of emotion that this man has poured into this album is just so felt with every track. There's some tracks that are just completely callous and cold and just really punchy. And then there's other ones that are just completely masterful, and the riffs and that the low tone guitars throughout it, you know, your heart just bounces right out of your chest.
That was another one that you introduced me to as well, and I think it's incredible the amount of. I totally agree with you. The amount of kind of feeling and heart that's on that record. You know, again, not unlike another of his countrymen, Jonathan in Selbst, who also put out just a phenomenal record.
Yes, he did too. Look, I'm really glad you listened to that one because, it's absolute darkness and it's just incredible. I absolutely love that album. That definitely had to be sitting there at number 4. And again, they're all so close. My number 3 is Abramelin, and people are going to go, it's not Abramelin, it's Abramelin. But it is actually Abramelin. And the album is Never Enough Snuff. Melbourne lads, this came out in May 2020, and I know this has made a lot of number 1 on people's lists. It's been 10 years since their last album, and for me, this just really proves why they are such pioneers in death metal in Australia. It's just absolute sophistication in their production, just complete brutality throughout the entire album, and, you know, the themes are just purely over-the-top gore related, and it's just absolutely solid, hard-hitting, and you have to listen to it up loud. There's no other way.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely one that demands just. It's like a great action movie, is how I would describe that album, and features the guitar stylings of my friend Matt Wilcock. So I did have a sneak preview of that album, and I know how chuffed he was to have been on that record. But yeah, I think it's absolutely superb. That was the first Australian death metal band that I was ever introduced to, and this was way back in the 90s. But I remember, my buddy getting it and playing it to me, and it's like, fuck, these guys are brutal. I mean, especially those older records are nuts. And then it's great to hear what they've done on this new album. The vocals on this new record, to me as well, are fucking sick. It's like,
amazing,
like some of the most intense death metal vocals I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, definitely. And this is a good example of brutal musicians and brutal music being absolute gentlemen, and those guys really are. They're the nicest people. I've been lucky enough to see them several times live, and there's just such a rawness to them. They're up there with no gimmicks. It's just them, and man, they just tear the roof off every time I've seen them. They are an absolute world-class act. So that one definitely is sitting at number 3 for me.
Chaos beyond
then we're getting down to the nitty gritty.
The business end. So, okay, here's what we'll do. So you do number 2, and then we'll do my list, and then we'll save your number 1 for the final, because I feel it's going to be a letdown if we don't. So your number 2.
Yeah, and look, again, this was so hard to pick between number 1 and number 2, but this is one of my favorite USBM solo artists. It is Vide. The album's Hanging by the Bayou Light. Now, this artist hails from Texas. This release came out in September 2020. This is very unique black metal. This is not like what we're used to hearing. There's a lot of black and roll throughout it, a lot of trancey style, apathetic beats, but it's not, I would not class this as DSBM. Even though there's some pretty heavy lyrical content and emotion going on here, this is proper catharsis at its most painful from start to finish. It's just a brilliant album, and I think that people that understand Vide's work, because he has put out a few albums before this, Demo 1, Demo 2, which I might say are completely different from this debut release. Just appreciate him for his authenticity and just stepping outside that square and still being able to nail the darkness and the misanthropy and everything that we want in our black metal. He just still manages to do that. So that album is absolutely brilliant. I don't know if you got to hear that, but
I did, and it reminded me, even though it's very different, there was something about it that reminded me of 2 bands actually, Cobalt and Merc Rider. I don't know whether it's in the atmosphere, because as I said, musically it's quite different. It's much more lo-fi. It's much more on the kind of depressive side of the scale. But yeah, there was just something about it that immediately made me think of those 2 bands. But I loved it. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has depressive tones, and you go back to his Demo 1 and 2, there's moments of that are so upbeat for black metal with that black and roll touch, but it's so dark. Like he's incredible. He also has a black metal project, a post-punk goth project. He does everything. He's an incredible artist. So he is sitting at my number 2.
All right, so then we'll pause on your number 2, and we'll get back to we'll close off with your number 1. But let me start then with mine. So I'm going to do, like I said, numbers 20 to 11, because I'm going to do the top 10 next week with the guys from Omega Infinity. But at my number 20 was an album I know you really like as well, the Infernal Sea, Negotium Crucis. This to me is really kind of the I don't know if the meaning of this phrase has changed in 2020, but their coming out party. I think that they've made consistently good records, and then this album to me was just such a step up from everything that they've done in the past. I did feel like some of the so-called journalists reviewing them kind of shortchanged them a little bit by referring to them as black and roll, or even referring to the record as black and roll, because I think there's some elements of that in there, but I think that massively understates what the album is. For me, this is everything that's great about UK black metal. It combines elements of second wave Scandinavian black metal. It combines elements of kind of the more groove orientated stuff, maybe from the early to mid 2000s, and then it just adds in almost kind of this DIY crust punk aesthetic as well. And these guys also mix in, for me, a lot of sort of old school Celtic Frost influences, and everything hangs together really, really well. The other thing that I love about this album is it sort of it seems to kind of settle into one style or one groove, and then and then right before you might feel like it's sounding repetitive, it shifts gears and it throws something completely different at you. And I love it. I love everything about this album. I think the aesthetic that they've used on the music video as well is fucking great. I said before, because I'm in contact with Dean from the band. I will definitely have him on next year at some point to talk about the record in more detail. But I thought tremendous effort and a great representative of the UK black metal scene. I think probably they've put out one of the best black metal albums of that the UK has put out in 2020.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And that one is actually in my honorables list as well. So brilliant album, brilliant production, so that everything is just so heavy within it. And yeah, I love that album. Great band.
So at number 19 is the first of what I realized this morning is 4 Polish bands in my in my top 20. Ars Magna Umbra, they put out a record called Apotheosis in August on I Voidhanger Records. This really took me by surprise. I didn't really know their stuff previously, and on the very excellent Black Metal Promotions channel, which I frequently reference on the show, I discovered this. There's a very distinct signature in a lot of Polish black metal, and which I love. There's kind of there's discordance, there's what I would deem organized chaos, there's definitely an injection of death metal's aggression, and then there's kind of this very subtle hint of avant-garde that comes into play with a couple of the bands. Ars Magna Umbra, I think, encapsulates all of that, and the other thing that these guys do exceedingly well are write just fucking extraordinary riffs. The track Apotheosis to me is just the main riff on that song. I think is one of the riffs of 2020. And it has inspired me to check out their earlier stuff, but this record is just fucking phenomenal. Was it something that you spent any time with or listened to at all?
Not until I saw your list. So I did get to listen to one track today. I can't think what song that was now, but I have to agree. And I've written it down to listen to more of this because I really do love Polish black metal. I feel like it's got that oppressive, and it's very, very cold and callous. And I'm looking forward to listening to more of this. A lot of what was on your list, I hadn't had a chance to listen to previously, which just highlights the amount of amazing metal that's come out this year, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Okay, so number 18, Above Aurora. The record is called The Shrine of Deterioration. They are also a Polish band, actually Polish and Icelandic, I should say. So they combine two fucking black metal powerhouses. This came out in June on Pagan Records. It took a little while to grow on me, and I'm going to have to confess right now, I was probably a little embittered by the fact that when I just started the podcast, they were one of the first bands I reached out to about coming on, and I just got this very typically Polish message back: "We are not interested." So my feelings were hurt, and because of that, I was probably a little harsher on the record than I ought to be. One of my best buddies, Andre, played this to me a couple of times after that, and he's like, "You need to give this another chance," because we loved their debut, Onwards Desolation. We really loved their EP that they put out in 2018, Path to Ruin. And then the more you listen to this album, the better it gets. It's dark, it's atmospheric, it's moody, it's angry. I think my only complaint about it is it's a little too short. It's only about 36 minutes. But I mean, even the album art, I think the cover art is contender for one of the best covers I've seen this year. It's fantastic. Is it, again, Above Aurora, a band you're familiar with? Is the album one that you spend any time with?
I'm not, and I didn't get a chance to have a listen to that one. So that one's highlighted, particularly after what you've just told me. I'm certainly enticed to have a listen to that, that's for sure.
Next at number 17, Hellfro. We go from folks that spurned me to a band that was happy to appear on the podcast, and they're fucking great dudes. This Hellfro record, it was interesting to see the amount of push that Season of Mist gave them, and deservedly so. They got like a proper music video treatment for their first single. The record itself, I think, is a really, it shows that you can kind of take that old school, really fast black metal aesthetic and inject it with a bit of death metal aggression, which both guys play in a death metal band as well, and it just turns into complete and utter magic. This record is fast, furious. It is short, but actually it should be short because it's if it were any longer, I think it would sort of outwear its welcome. But it came out on the Season of Mist Underground Activists label back in April, I believe. They are great dudes. I'd love to have them back on the podcast at some point. And again, if you in the mood for something that's fucking chilling and unbelievably angry at the same time, this is the record for you. And amazing that they put out something this good, as their sort of debut record for Season of Mist.
Yeah, this is Hellfro. This is one of I love this album. Mikey actually sent this to me when it first came out and was like, Kel, you have to listen to this. He knows my taste down to a T, and it's just ridiculously good. And I think Icelandic black metal is just, it's such a force, and I kind of liken it a little bit, not so much sound-wise to Finnish black metal, but just that whole attitude of zero fucks. They just go for it. There's no, we've got to stick to this one sound and we've got to stick to these trem picks. And, they just, like you said, there's death metal, there's groove throughout this album. There's beautiful ambience that occurs, particularly in that opening track. And it's angry. It's angry stuff.
Yeah,
it's a big album. I absolutely love this album.
Which again is ironic, given our earlier point about people's personalities. They're the two of the most laid-back people I've ever come across in my life.
But out in their music, see.
Yeah, I intentionally didn't include EPs on this list, just because that would have made it even harder. But there were Van Records in particular put out just some incredible splits that had a lot of Icelandic bands on. So the ones that immediately spring to mind that I loved was the Almjörkmi Runes of Beverast split. I thought that was sensational. And the Carpe Noctem split was incredible as well. So yeah, that scene is as buoyant as ever, and I think Hellfro is a great example of that. At number 16, I believe we're at now, another Polish band, Cult Vinder, put out "And Nothing Is Endless" on Witching Hour Productions. The sequel to Delusions, which came out in 2017. Delusions was an album that I liked, but it never featured particularly highly on my radar. And having gone back to it, I still think it's good, but it's not. It's nothing in comparison to And Nothing Is Endless. I don't know what these guys drank before they started recording this record, but they've come up with something that's extraordinary. And again, one of the things I love about it, it's one of those records where it demands that you listen to it end to end, because everything kind of flows into each other really nicely. They also have, in my view, they win the award for one of the fucking meanest black metal songs I've ever heard in my life. Track 6, Red Glow. If you've not listened to this album yet, just do yourself a favor and listen to that album. Listen to that song. It is fucking stunning. And yeah, again, this band for me is they have pulled together something truly extraordinary and really found a couple of extra gears creatively.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of this band before I saw it on your list, and I did have a listen to 2 tracks today, and I didn't want to turn it off. So I'm definitely going to be listening to that on the way to work tomorrow, because I do have to go to work. But yeah, I love this because, there's just so much to discover. So these guys were completely insane. There was so much chaos going on, and it was a little bit scary. Really good.
Yeah, no, superb. Another Polish band at number 15. And again, this was not intentional. I actually, at one point this year, I was thinking, okay, there's so much good Polish stuff coming out. I'm going to need to limit the amount that I place on the list. But you could not possibly have avoided this. Odraza put out a record called Rekshum in I can't remember when it came out. I think it was May of 2020. Has this really weird cover of just kind of this woman looking like she's being chased by fucking thieves on the streets of Krakow. But again, incredible record. Probably leaning more towards some of the avant-garde influences that we mentioned before. But again, they kind of never overstay their welcome, and the band really know how to kind of throw in something that comes from left field and then get back to business before it starts to sound a little self-indulgent and pretentious. The main thing that I find shocking about this is how in the fuck Odraza is not signed to a record label. Rekshum was put out independently. I could only imagine that's by choice, because if anyone's been overlooking this, they then a couple of folks at A&R departments and record labels should lose their jobs. But this also had a pretty significant amount of hype around it when it came out. Did you check it out? Did it feature on your radar at all?
Yeah, I did. I actually loved it. I'm a bit hit and miss with avant-garde at times, but I agree. I think they nailed their input on that. There's so many cool obscurities, but they pull it back into the aggression really quickly. So it's not, like you said, it's not overplayed and gets a little bit lost. But I haven't listened to this album since it did release. But you're enticing me to want to dive into that one again, that's for sure.
Swartzen is at where are we at now? Number 14. Let me actually double check that. So we have 14. So Swartzen put out a record it was pretty recently actually, in October, called Requiem. And I'd kind of written Swartzen off completely. And actually, to be honest with you, now in hindsight, I don't know why. I think it's because, for the most part, I've not been particularly excited by a lot of Swedish black metal, with the exception maybe of Marduk, but even the last Marduk album, I didn't really care for. But bands like Nagelfar and stuff like that, I don't like that style of black metal. I don't like, frankly, I don't like anything that sounds like it's a sped up Iron Maiden riff, in part because I don't like Iron Maiden. So that will, that always gets a couple of boos from the listeners, but I have to be honest. But anyway, so Swartzen came out. I have a little ritual every Friday morning. Like, I go onto Metal Storm and I go onto Invisible Oranges and I check what's new, and then I lie in bed listening to like at least one track of everything that looks like it might be interesting for me. So Swartzen came out. The description was, evil permeates this album from start to finish, and I was like, immediately I was interested, listened to it, and I could not agree more. It's definitely inspired me to want to check out everything else they've done, or at least I remember checking out some of their earlier stuff, but certainly not the last couple of records. But this is fucking phenomenal. The album is called Requiem. It's out on Carnal Records. Like I said, came out in October. 6 tracks, 46 minutes, and it's kind of a, I don't want to call it a slow burn record because people will think the tempo is slow, but it feels like this kind of sort of simmering fire throughout, and absolutely the way Invisible Oranges has described it, there's a genuine sense of darkness and evil about the album, which just to me makes it irresistible.
Oh, absolutely. I haven't heard this one. Again, you've sold me. You sold me at evil, so I'll definitely have a look. I'm a little bit the same. I mean, Swedish black metal is hit and miss for me. I mean, there's some great bands out there like Hellgoat and One, and I can't think of the other one. But anyway, there's some really good ones that I've discovered. But I'll put this one on the list, that's for sure.
Okay, so then at number 13, my first pure death metal release or death metal favorite, Werewolves, The Dead Are Screaming, featuring the musical stylings of Matt Wilcock, David Haley, who's just an absolute legend and has played in a lot of bands I love, and then Sam Bean on vocals and bass. Sam Bean, of course, also part of the Antichrist Imperium. I hope you won't mind me saying this, but Matt had given me a preview of this quite a while before it came out. He was kind of like, they'd put together this record, and the whole idea behind doing the album was, whereas he's normally very, particular about how and what he writes and throws out a lot of ideas and it takes quite a while when it comes to putting stuff together. He wanted to do something that was just totally spontaneous and virtually no ideas thrown out. They just, write, record, done, and I think they did this album was done in a week. I think the new album is even shorter, but to me, it's a testament of everybody in that band's brilliance that they could pull together an album that is so fucking violent, aggressive, hateful, angry, and yet still so song-centric. There's so many great, memorable tracks on this album. And they did it all in the space of a week. I think most of the songs were written in like literally a couple of hours. Matt is a fucking riff machine anyway. This just proves it. It's almost like, it's almost like they, because he hasn't done anything aside from the appearance on the Bremelin. He's not done it kind of pure death metal for a while. It's almost like they sort of looked at the scene and went, okay, hold our beers. We'll show you how this is done, and put out just something totally phenomenal. I love this album. I listen to it to this day very frequently. I think if you want to hear one of the most murderous things you'll ever hear in your life, check out the first track, Established Dominance, and the third track, Dog Knotted. And I am super excited about the new album that comes out next year, What a Time to Be Alive. I may or may not have heard a little bit of that as well, but it's absolutely fucking brilliant. I can tell you guys right now, it's extremely likely to be on the list next year as well. But your thoughts on Werewolves? Did you check this out?
My thoughts were, how have I not heard this until now? I listened to this from start to finish today. It was the most I listened to out of the ones that I hadn't heard on your list, to be fair, because I couldn't turn it off. It was huge. I loved the grind throughout it. And like you say, it was just so violent and aggressive. The vocal delivery just killed me. It's absolutely menacing.
Was literally just about to say, Sam Bean, he's generally pretty good, but he's really outdone himself on this. He's fucking amazing. He's got I think in my view, I think in terms of modern death metal, he's one of the best vocalists on the planet. He's got this rhythm to his voice and this way of kind of enunciating what he says that it adds an extra hook to the song. And it's always been my biggest beef with death metal, especially modern death metal, is that I don't feel like there's enough rhythm in people's voices, and they kind of miss that element of using your voice as an instrument, which I think Sam totally gets. I think partly because all these guys, are into old school stuff and probably into the same kind of death metal that I am. I know Matt is an example, he's massively into the first 3 Deicide records and stuff like that. All of that comes out on this album. And then there's also there is a slight whiff of black metal every so often. It might be like a little break. Yeah. It might be like a break or just like a little bit of melody that comes in, but it's magnificent. Absolutely fucking magnificent.
It's excellent. I spent a lot of time listening to that today, that's for sure. So brilliant. I'll really enjoy it. I'll be listening to that more and more.
And by the way, just as we're on the topic of vocals, the way that Sam says on Established Dominance, there's a bit where he changes his voice up slightly and he says, "You can hear the squeals from here." Fucking genius. It makes me feel like a teenager again, listening to shit like that and getting excited about lines like that. Okay, at number 12, Vous Autres. I'm not going to try and pronounce it properly because I'm just going to butcher it anyway. They brought out a record called Cell de Pierre. Katie Irizarry from Season of Mist actually said to me she dropped me a line on email and said, I need to check this album out. She thinks I'm really going to like it. It was off the back of me suggesting Runes of Beverast's Exuvia to her, and I can 100% see why she did. I don't think the albums sound the same, but there's definitely, I would not be surprised if the Vous Autres guys say that they really like that record, because there's kind of a denseness and a darkness and a progression to this record that I think is not entirely in a different in a different camp to that Ruins of Beveras record. I think this is absolutely beautiful. I think it's too short, frankly, for kind of how epic some of these songs are. I mean, there's the sort of lead single that that Season of Mist pushed originally, Vesuve, I think is the highlight on the record. But everything on the album is amazing, and it just feels to me like it ends too soon. I think if this record was 2-3 songs longer, it would probably have been in my top 5. I think it's fucking fantastic.
Where did you say these guys were from?
France.
France, yeah. France has some great black metal coming out of there, that's for sure. Yeah. Definitely. I think there's a turn of some stunning black metal coming out of there. So I need to listen to this one a little bit deeper, for sure.
Yeah. No, I can highly recommend it. I think you will definitely enjoy it very much. So we're at number 12 now, right? Yes. Diarrhea, Limbo. When Moonspell dropped the ball and decided to turn into fucking the Backstreet Moonspell, Diarrhea decided to show that Portugal can still make some phenomenal black metal. This is almost too polished. When I first heard it, I was like, there's a part of me that loves the production on this, but this is super polished. But the more I've listened to that record, the more I've come to appreciate the polish, because there's so much going on in the riffs and in all of the layers that they kind of add onto every single track, that if it weren't polished, it would be you'd almost miss too much. This record just sounds absolutely fucking huge, and you can see in everything from the way the band present themselves to the cover art to some of the stuff I've seen of them live. I mean, you can see that the creativity that's gone into this and the clarity of vision that kind of powers Diarrhea is what will set this band apart. And I think if it's a shame that this record came out this year, when there's no touring and stuff like that going on, because I think it would have opened an extraordinary amount of doors for them. And I feel like this is the next step now from, bands like Behemoth, that have gotten relatively big without any compromise. I feel like a band like Diarrhea is the band that someone who goes to a Behemoth show, likes it, gets into the band, and then starts to feel like maybe Nurgle has turned into a bit of an asshole and he wants to move on to something else. Diarrhea is the band that you should be listening to. This album is phenomenal.
Yeah, I still remember where I was when I first heard their first album, Unsettling Whispers, and it was huge. And I was waiting for this one to come, and I've been listening to it nonstop. It's such a suffocation of the heaviest musicianship, and I have to agree, the production is so polished, particularly compared to Unsettling Whispers, but it works for me because it's still such a suffocating. It's just like an elephant sitting on your chest when you listen to this album, and it's one of my favorites for sure.
It's pummeling. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's
pulverizing and humbling. Yeah,
it hits you with so much at this, all at once. But it's like the more you digest it, the more brilliant the record gets.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and then at my number 11. And this is the last of of my countdown that I will reveal on this episode. I'm actually shocked that this album isn't higher up, but again, that gives you an idea of how good the year was. Napalm Death, Throes of Joy in the Jaws of Defeatism. I have the same problem with this album title that you have with the Puncture Wound album title. I kept on fucking it up when I did when I was recording the review for it, and I had to restart the video so many times that eventually I just thought, fuck it. Now I'm just going to lean into it. If I make a mistake, so be it. So I spoke at length about Napalm Death with Jeremy Wagner 2 episodes ago when I completed my death metal countdown series, and how much I love this band. And not just how much I love this band, but how much I admire their ability to stay as great as they are. So many albums in and so many years into their career. And I truly believe, I've said this many times before, but I truly believe that Shane Embry is one of the most underappreciated songwriters of our generation. I mean, not even one of, probably the amount of incredible stuff that he churns out on Lockup, even Brujeria, but Napalm Death in particular, the fact that he can somehow on every single record make it sound like a Napalm Death record, but then just injecting something a little left field and kind of innovating a little bit or coloring a little outside the lines, and still making it interesting. There's so many bands from Napalm Death's generation that, to me, don't make anything remotely interesting anymore. And a lot of them, I would still concede as being, some of my favorite death and grind bands. That includes Deicide, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse. But if you had to judge them of the merit of what they put out in the last 5 years versus what Napalm Death does, then Napalm Death stands head and shoulders above them. They've remained creative. They've remained, musically innovative. And they just remain interesting, and they remain relevant. And to me, this album is a triumph. I think it's every single thing that you love about Napalm Death, then rolled into this ball of sort of a bit of experimenting, a bit of sort of different stuff, but stuff that all just kind of hangs together. There's the Killing Joke influences. There's the Swans influences. I might be reading too much into it, but I almost hear a Death Grips influence on a track later on the record. But phenomenal. And I will say this because on the off chance that he sees this, I have spoken to Shane before for Chronicles of Chaos. If he ever wants to come on this podcast, he right now is an absolute wish list guest of mine. I'd love to talk to him. I just want to pick the guy's brain and understand how his songwriting process works, because I think the man's a fucking genius.
Well, I hope he comes on for you. That would be amazing. You sound like a big fan.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. But as I said, I don't know how big of an Napalm Death fan you are, but you've probably, me geeking out there for about 5 minutes probably gave you an idea of what I think of the band.
Look, to be honest, I haven't really gotten into Napalm Death hugely, but I did have a listen to this album, and I have to agree, it was excellent. It blew my mind. I think that it's a testament to bands that have been in the game for so long that can still produce something relative, like you said. They're not stuck back in the 90s or early 2000s. They're moving with things and just pushing their boundaries and their creativity. And I definitely think this album does that. That's for sure. Yeah, no, I agree. And
I think that it's so difficult for bands to do that because my theory around it is I think everybody has a bag of tricks, and at some point your bag of tricks has run out, and I think that your bag of tricks is bigger if you have a broader musical palette, or it's smaller if you only listen to a certain number of stuff, or you only allow a certain number of influences in. If we think of Slayer as an example, the reality is, as much as I was sad to see them go, and I loved seeing them live every time I saw them live, and I always have a fondness for Slayer, they did not release anything good after Seasons in the Abyss. When I say good, I mean truly great by their standards. Divine Intervention was enjoyable, and there's songs that have come out that are enjoyable. But if you had to compare first half to second half, I don't give a fuck what anybody says to me. It's not comparable. Same with Metallica. And when we get to death metal, it's the same deal. Have Cannibal Corpse really written anything better than The Bleeding? Like there's albums they brought out afterwards that are good, but there's nothing that like hits you in the face like that, like the Bleeding did. With the riffs, with the way that they were writing songs, like it's just. And then somehow Napalm Death, kind of fit into this extremely small circle of bands where I genuinely think it's because Shane Embury loves music as much as he does that he manages to keep things fresh and keep things interesting, and he manages to keep writing records that tops the previous one. And again, 16, 17 records in, that is just, it's mind-boggling to me. Like, how do you not run out of ideas? The best of the best have run out of ideas. And Al Nathrak's new record, great example of a band who have run out of tricks. They've nothing more to show. They're never going to do anything. And if a lot of people have been creaming themselves over this new Al Nathrak record, but put that album on and then immediately listen to something that they did 2-3 records back. It's not comparable anymore. The previous stuff is a lot better. Even Paradise Lost, one of my favorite bands, this new album sucks. It took me a while to have to admit it to myself because I love Medusa so much, but it just sounds to me like a band that have just run out of steam. They've run out of things to say.
I think when bands have been around for that long, it probably happens more often than not when you go through it all. So yeah, good on Napalm for just keeping it creative and keeping it brutal. I really need to listen to this album more because it did sucker me in, that's for sure. Because
for the last 10 minutes I've been here like a tele-evangelist getting you to convert to the Napalm Death camp. Okay, so that brings us to the finale of this first half of my top 20 of 2020 special. Your number one of 2020.
So my number one of 2020 is Mazikeen. They are an Australian band. They also have members, I'm pretty sure, from the USA, so a bit of a collaborative effort. The album is The Solace of Death. It came out in March 2020. Now, since I heard this album, again, I haven't been able to turn it off. There are 4 cover tracks on this album, which I personally don't feel they needed, because the 8 original tracks on this album are just absolutely exceptional, completely masterful, exemplary production, and just completely massive creation with the most emotive and hugest melodies, crushing riffs. Everything from the vocal execution is just so powerful, and it's hard not to listen to this and just be blown away by its sophistication. And this is their debut album, and it's massive. I know there are people talking about this album, but I know it's hard to cover everything, and people are listening to so much, but people need to really listen to this album and just embrace it, because it's huge. It was huge for me, and it still is. And I only put it on again the other day when I was finalizing my list. And I just feel like every time I listen to it, it just gets bigger and bigger for me. So it's an absolutely masterful album, in my opinion.
Yeah, of everything that you sent to me, this record and the Black Knife album were the ones that I liked the most.
Yeah, so it's funny about Black Knife, because Spellcaster is an absolutely brilliant album, but it came out in 2019, but I only reviewed it this year. So
I did notice that, and I thought to myself, maybe it's one of those where like it comes out on December the 29th, so it's it technically wouldn't have been included in any previous lists, but yeah, I did notice that. But this Mazikeen record, it's interesting though, those four covers, because they encapsulate exactly what the band is about, at least in terms of the bands that they cover. So they cover Mayhem, Dissection, Dimmu Borgir, and Darkthrone. But I feel like they really kind of wrap that up into something that's very, very special, and that's very unique. And it almost has, like, the way I sometimes describe a lot of Australian bands is, and again, I don't know whether it's because of the geographical separation or because of the fact that your weather is nicer and the food's good. You don't live in abject misery like us in the United Kingdom. But there's always something about Australian bands that you can't quite put your finger on it, but it just sounds just a little different. And when I say that, I mean it in the best possible way. It's just like slightly different, like 1% to the right or 1% to the left.
Yeah.
This band to me is a great example of that. And I know I've probably not done it justice with that very fucking ham-fisted description, but
likewise. And I did review this album when it came out, so I've put a lot more detail into that review. But just the melodicism throughout this album, the death metal influences throughout it, it's just it's just so good. It's so good. Definitely my number one.
Fantastic. All right. Well, there you go. So that is part 1 done. Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute blast talking to you, and we will have to do something again at some point next year. Like I said, maybe we should have our ACDC special.
We should. I'd love to talk ACDC.
Oh yeah,
I love them as much.
But just quickly for people that don't know, I'm pretty confident most people know that they listen to this podcast. But your Instagram handle and all of your other stuff, where can people find you?
So we're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram under Kelly T Black Metal Reviews. So yeah, look us up, subscribe, follow, and we are literally talking about 3 or 4 albums a week. Toning it down a little bit now, coming into Christmas, because it's getting a little bit hectic with social life and family. But
so there we go. There's the hellhound in the background. I knew she would make an appearance at some point. So you mean you're not toning it down because you want to celebrate the day of our Lord's birth?
Oh, I come from a highly religious family. No, I don't actually. I was brought up in a fairly atheist home, but a great home. But yeah, so anyone that's listening to this with any of the bands that Jackie and I have talked about, just look them up, give them a go, give them a follow. Bringing attention to their socials is a good thing for these bands as well, and follow their Bandcamp. the one-stop shop for these bands. So total support.
Yeah, and also, I don't think any of my audience would fall under the auspices of elitism, but don't send Kelly any abusive messages because it's just fucking stupid. I was worried when I went to answer a message yesterday, and I just noticed one of the accounts said Instagrammer, and I was like, what the fuck? So I looked and I was like, oh shit, that's yours. And I thought, why have you disappeared? Has some lunatic been sending you dick pics or something like that?
Well, it happens. But yeah, I had a bit of a heart attack this morning when you wrote to me and said, what's happened to your page? And I think someone had tried to get into it. But anyway, we sorted that out.
And thank you very much. I'll speak to you shortly. And I'll see all of you fools next week.
There's no need for this money. There is no need for possession. Give it all. Give it all.
thank you so much to Kelly for coming on the show. I had a blast talking to her. I hope that you guys enjoyed that too. And I hope that you guys enjoyed the bands that were featured. I played a couple of tracks, Vredensdal, Napalm Death, Mazikeen at the end, Kelly's number one pick of the year, and a Bremelin. So I wasn't going to do another 4-hour marathon. If you really like the bands that we've discussed, or you don't know them, then our word should be more than enough for you to go and seek them out. So do so, show them some love and support, and thank you very, very much for tuning in. Next week's episode with Zen and Tentacle, the triple threat top 10 throwdown, is going to be my last of the year, and then I'm taking a little break until January. So make sure that you are there for that. Make sure that you subscribe to Kelly's channels on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. If you're not yet subscribed to Into the Necrosphere, then what the fuck is wrong with you? From Mean Street Studios, I'm wishing all of you badasses a fond farewell.